floating up in the clouds, but I've always felt that something's missing. That was until I found you right there in the crowd. You came into my life and started a fire. You made me feel like I could touch the sky. Oh, there's nothing missing now that you're my desire. Now all I have to do is to make you mine. 'Cause I know, and you know what we could be. Like a song, like a perfect melody. Baby, don't say you don't believe in me. 'Cause you know, and I know, we're onto something good. You know, and I know, we got something good.
Hi there, how's it going? Bonnie Violet here. I am a transgender queer spiritual drag artist and digital chaplain, and you have found yourself at Say Something Sunday. This is the time of the week when I just take some time to say something that's on my mind or something that's been on my mind in the past or just whatever it is I feel like saying this week. So, hi, Charlie. I saw that you are on here and thanks for saying hello. Glad you could join me this evening. For folks, yeah, like I just want to get right in there, and talk about it. Tonight, I was wanted to talk a little bit about my inheritance, which sounds all I don't know. It sounds bougie. I don't know if bougie is the right word, but it sounds like to me, I think of money and property and that sort of thing initially when I hear those terms. But for me, and I think for all of us, it's more than that. Like, what is it that we inherited? What is it that was passed down to us or given to us by the people who came before? Um, and I think this evening I'm going to focus a little bit just kind of on family and my relationship with that. Um, well, yeah, I mean, it's all connected, right? So with inheritance, I would say when I was young and I was growing up in, uh, rural Idaho in a small town with my family. And I think as kids sometimes do, or young people, or what I found myself was oftentimes I was embarrassed of what I guess was my inheritance. I guess I was embarrassed of, um, well, I was conflicted. I was conflicted I was in a loving family with people that I loved and adored, and also had a hard time feeling like I was a part of too. I don't know, it's hard to explain, but I think when you're young, or at least when I was young, I was kind of really focused on what I didn't have versus what I did have. And so oftentimes I focused on the idea that maybe we didn't have a lot of money and then what could I do different from that? Or I think I was just focusing on the negative stuff. Like I think even when I got into my young adulthood, I could think of the difficulties, the traumas I experienced as a young person or a child that stuck with me. But I think for me, I oftentimes I didn't want to be I didn't want to be I didn't want to be where I was. For whatever reason, I really didn't think I fit. I just really didn't think I fit. And so in that way, it was all about like how I don't know, it's so interesting to be talking about this. I feel bad about the way that I used to see myself and see my family. So I think I don't need to really dwell on that. I think the thing that's been helpful for me is when I was able to come to a place when I could really start to find and seek and see um, that which was passed down to me and given to me from my family that I valued. For me, this process was, or the moment or the time that I took to finally um, really play with the good and the difficult and like to just take like a real evaluation or inventory was around my recovery process of getting away from drugs and alcohol and really I mean I think my drug and alcohol and my decision to leave that was, um, I was tired of I just wasn't able to continue to I don't know, I just reached a point in my life where I didn't know how to get different results, which I know I've said a lot of other times, but in recovery, and in a lot of our situations as we get older, we come to a point where we want to make amends and we want to create opportunities for forgiveness, and for me that became really important for me to be able to move forward and move forward in a way in which I could continue living without having to put a substance in me to cope with life, and part of that was being able to have conversations, somewhat difficult conversations, and in some ways, really great conversations. I remember I I had a huge resentment with my father. Growing up, we were just very different. My dad loved me. He was very proud of me, but I just don't think he knew what to do with me. I was a very different child, and he had some of his own things that didn't allow him to show up for me in a way that I felt like I wanted or needed, and I was really hurt by that for a long time. And so when I got to the process of thinking that I needed to make amends with someone and make amends with him, I was like, how and why would I do that? And with a lot of things, we can start to see what like our behavior was like. Like, we, was it that I was doing that was, that I needed to make amends for, that I needed to own up to, you know? And for me, that process was having a conversation with my father around what I had gained and learned and got from him. Now I guess getting to the inheritance part, um, is that, my family has taught me generosity. They have taught me that you always have something to give to those who might need something that you have, or something that you have the ability to do, no matter how little we have or as challenging as things might be, that there's always a way that we can make ourselves available to other people. I think the other thing that my family has been really good about is kind of acceptance and loyalty. Um, I have done a lot of things, or I have carried a lot of identities and lived my life in a number of ways that's very different from some people in my family. And I know that a lot of there are families who wouldn't, you know, accept me for who I am, and may have, even when they didn't care for some of the actions. And I'm not talking about just like being gay or queer or that sort of thing, but when I was struggling with addiction and mental health and just not wanting to live anymore and being scared of HIV and AIDS, and just the behaviors and the lack of kindness that was present at times, my family always they always made a way to show up for me. Sometimes it took a little while, and it oftentimes wasn't in the form that I thought I wanted it to be. But my parents, they and my family always they just kind of show up. I don't think there's ever I've never felt like my love or my safety, or was really at risk. Um, that didn't mean it didn't create distance and things like that, but um, so acceptance, generosity, those are the things that I feel like I've carried on from my family. It's really interesting. I'm kind of like reflecting in this process, and it's I'm feeling really vulnerable. Um, just in the sense of like, one, I think for me, just kind of grappling with it, but two, just trying to figure out a way to speak about it in a way in which that doesn't cause harm, but also speaks fully to what the experience has been thus far. Um, I one of the things that I have chosen in my adult life is taking on the names of my grandmothers. My grandma Bonnie, who's my father's mother, and my mom's mother, whose name is Violet. These are two women who were very prominent and strong figures in my family that I felt really connected to. My grandma Bonnie is, the grandma that I first, um, I was so close to her, and my family spoke. I was one when she was around, and I've heard the stories of how much I loved her and how connected we were, and how I couldn't sleep at home, and she would come and pick me up and drive me around in her car until I fell asleep. And she was just one of my favorite people. She passed away when I was one, um, and so I don't really remember her, but um, but there is this knowing, right? There's this connection that I've always felt to her, and I've always felt like um, she's been with me. Um, and then my grandma Violet um, is another name and another person that I feel like I've brought a lot of. My grandma and I used to do crafty things, and we made earrings when I was little, and we did all kinds of just creative, spiritual kind of things. I feel like my grandma Violet, I got like her craftiness, which is also something, my dad. I think I got my art and my skill and my creativity from my father as well. Um, and and then my grandma Violet, I always think of sparkly things too. Like I think I get my love for the sparkle and the tackiness or gaudiness of things, I'll say at times, which I love. At times I've been embarrassed about, but it is like a part of me that I remember when people used to say like, "Oh, it's so you," as far as like what I was wearing or what I was doing, and I at first I used to take that as like a as a kind like it doesn't look so great kind of comment, but I've come to really understand that that's not what was going on, at least for me. Um, so so that's a lot of the reason why I took Bonnie Violet as my name now, my new name, as a trans person who um, is going through a transition of sorts. It was really important for me to honor. Um, I don't know, it just felt special. I remember having conflict with whether or not it's like if I needed other people's permission to choose the name, but I get to have my experience with them. I don't mean any harm or disrespect to anyone, but they're two women that are very significant and meaningful in my life, and I carry them with me um, all the time. And that's kind of where, like, initially, some of the kind of like knowing where I come from, and what is, passed down. And then, and that's kind of around the family arena, but, me moving out to San Francisco was another way of me feeling like I was connecting with my roots. For me as a queer um, person living with HIV, a person in recovery, I've been benefited so much from uh, people who have come before me, people who have been, um, trans people that were, you know, visibly trans in public, and LGBTQ folks and people who had went on clinical trials for HIV, and we lost so many people over the years. Through those processes, though, I was able to, contract HIV and eventually live well with HIV. and that happened because of those who had come before me. I have also not experienced um, some of the violence that some people have experienced before me. Also, the joys, the great things, again, are important. Maybe not just the sacrifices. I think that was the other element of this conversation, and I do like to keep this down to 20 minutes. But in thinking about inheritance as like what it is that what is it that came before me that I am impacted by, and those are sometimes come in the form of trauma. Those sometimes come in the form of blessings and curses, gifts. Um, and, with inheritance and as we get older, it's legacy. Like, what is it that I have to leave for those who come behind me? And legacy is something that, I think, it happens even while you're alive. It doesn't happen just in death. Anytime you um, go ahead of somebody else, I guess. I don't know, but it's just kind of thinking like, what is it that I'm going to leave behind that is going to have, like, what is it? For a long time, I know what it's not now. I know that much of the trauma that I experienced in my life um, throughout my life, by doing the work of healing my trauma and sitting with that trauma, I am I'm not passing down that same trauma uh, to somebody else or over to somebody else, or um, which I think is yeah. I mean, that's like I think that's a big part is just having that awareness. You cannot transmit something you haven't got, and so you can't leave something for someone if you haven't had it. I would much rather um, leave gifts and blessings um, and less curses or um, difficult things for people behind me to deal with. And I think we all do that. My parents did a lot to afford me a different experience than what they had. Um, and I'm all the better for it. And I'm doing my best, as most of us do, to hopefully do the same with our loved ones and all of that. So, and then as an LGBTQ person who doesn't have like a family, as in like a direct family, like kids and spouses and stuff like that, and often think about, well, what is it that I'm giving to the world, or I'm giving to community, that sort of thing. Um, Yeah, not necessarily like a fully fleshed, uh, like a lecture or anything like that, or even like a teaching or anything tonight. It's the say something process. Sometimes I think it is going to come in the form of like very clear thoughts and points, and other times it's going to be me just speaking on a certain topic or that and processing potentially. Some of these things as I continue to come to reveal and know and see more of myself, and how how I am and how I exist impacts the people around me. Um, yeah, so I'm right at the 20-minute mark, so I don't want to belabor this. I'm not sure I said anything that was of use, but hopefully it's just something that I don't know. It's got me thinking, and it's really I, one of the things I was just noticing is just how I was reluctant to just um, to be mindful about what it is I'm saying and how I'm saying it and how it might impact is a way in which I am being intentional about what it is that I am going to leave, what mark I'm going to make. Um, yeah, and I don't know, just something to think about. I feel like in some ways that's almost like me living into or living on the other side of something. And in doing that, I don't have to speak about things in a way or to even an experience in a way in which I had experienced it now. It's like once you get more context and once you have more of the bigger picture of things, it all just makes sense and it doesn't feel personal and it doesn't feel like slighted or, and it doesn't mean you weren't harmed or neglect or like harmed or hurt or bothered by what happened, but I can come to have more of an understanding. I want to just leave with just kind of like a prayer or an intention or just something that I want to put out there more is I really want to get to know more of the lives of um, my family and other folks in my life who have come before me. I'm really interested in all of that, how people were, yeah, and just what people's experience were growing up and what I don't know. I'm just really there's a part of me that wants to know that because it helps me. I think it helps me understand me more, but also I don't know. That's just kind of where I'm at. I've had a huge desire. I think not everyone is comfortable with talking about the past or talking about what their experience was. So that can be challenging. But yeah, I am now rambling at 23 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and say goodbye. Join me next week at Say Something at 6 o'clock. If you're curious about any of the other things that I have going on, you can check out A Queer Chaplain wherever you listen to podcasts to kind of see what's going on with the most recent interviews. I interview drag queens and trans folks and have a podcast with my aunt called Splintered Grace. I currently happen to be in Portland, but oftentimes, whenever you're listening to this or watching this, there's a good chance I'm in the middle of a process of getting ready to interview somebody or host an event or any of that sort of stuff. So to get connected with that which came before and that which may come after, check out the links in the description. And I will see you next week. Bye-bye.
I've been waiting all my life for something. I've been down the darkest roads and up in the clouds, but I've always felt that something's missing. That was until I found you right there in the crowd. You came into my life and started a fire. You made me feel like I could touch the sky. Oh, there's nothing missing.